doing? My name's Dave, and if ToneBoosters reached out to you out of nowhere and gave you a whole bunch of new apps to try, you can call me Daveypoo, the mobile music minstrel. How you doing? All right. So, what I just said, ToneBoosters reached out to me out of nowhere and said, hey, Dave, we heard that you do great reviews, and we want to give you a whole bunch of apps to try. And I said, awesome, man. That's fantastic. So, people have been encouraging me or asking why I haven't dealt with the ToneBoosters apps before. Well, it's because I didn't have any to try, and ToneBoosters was really, really nice, and they reached out and they said, hey, we did see some of your reviews, and people have been talking about you, and we wanted to give you a bunch of apps if you wanted to try them. And I said, yeah. And they gave me like 4 apps to try. And they said, if you want any more, or if there's any you had your eye on, let us know. And I said, well, actually, I was looking at these other 2, and they sent those to me in like 2 hours later. So thank you. That's incredible. And these apps are really impressive. I've opted to not do individual videos for these because, well, they've been out for a while, and there are a lot of other people doing reviews and showing you how to use them and doing tutorials and things like that. So I thought I'd go back to an older style where I'd put together a jam using all of these apps in various ways and show you what I've done and just some ways that you could actually put these into production. I know that I get a lot of apps in my hands to review, and I end up hanging on to a lot of them, but I don't always get past the initial falling in love phase. Most of the time I just go back to the ones I grab regularly. So I tried to do something a little different today. So I set up a jam here. On the desk, I have got my Korg Nano Control 2 faders. I'm using those to control levels and mutes and stuff. I got that all MIDI'd out with 8 Matrix that I'm hosting in today. Also on the desk, I've got my Arturia Mini Lab here. It's a Mini Lab Mark 1, and that's controlling the sort of string pad sound. And then I've got my Keith McMillan keyboard also here on the desk. That's controlling the bass. So in 8 Matrix here, I've got Tal Uno LX, which, despite its ridiculous name, is a fantastic recreation of a Juno synthesizer. I've got a really basic string sound going here. I'm using Rosetta cells to play it. I've just got 2 chords going back and forth. I'm running Tal Uno X into the EQ here, and I'm rolling off the low end. We'll get into these apps a little more in depth later. Then I'm also running that into Reverb, and I've got a shimmer kind of a reverb going here, and then that's running into Compressor, which is being side-chained. So, okay, we're going to get the pumping thing with the strings. Now, moving over to page 2, I've got another instance of Tal Uno LX playing the bass, and I'm using Atom Piano Roll to play it. And I've got that running through dual VCF, which I've got 2 filters going here to kind of make it this quacky, kind of a weird, wonky bass sound. Then on page 3 here, I've got Digisticks, and I've got Digisticks set with multiple outputs. I've got the kick drum running into Real Bus here. I've got the snare drum running into Reverb, kind of getting that gated, splashy 80s snare drum thing going. I've got another instance of Reverb here for the claps, so I can get a nice long trail on the clap. And then I've got another instance of Real Bus here, and for that, I'm getting a flange effect for like the shaker and the hi-hat. And then I'm also running the kick drum into the sidechain input on Compressor, you see here, down at the bottom on the left-hand side and all the way over at the right on the top. And that's sidechaining the Compressor instance here on page 1 that the strings are running into. So let's hear what I got. Let's start this up, and I'm going to bring in the strings here. You can already hear them pumping. So, what do I have going on with the strings here? Let's go back and just hear without the pumping. So, I'm running into, well, first of all, I'm running into EQ here. This is a fantastic EQ app. It's very, very comparable to Pro Q2 from FabFilter, and a lot of people will say that they look nearly identical. I would say that, maybe this isn't quite as pretty, only because that when it's small like this, they look nearly identical. When you blow this up, it actually increases the size of the font in ToneBoosters app, whereas in FabFilter, everything stays nice and small, and the lines are all fine, and everything looks all geeky and nerdy and pretty. But, I mean, functionally, they are comparable. This thing's great. It's got an analyzer in it, so you can see what's going on. I'm going to turn that off to save some system resources. It's got an AI assist. It's got multi-band compression. It's a really pro-level EQ. I'm using it in extremely simple fashion here, but I wanted to use only ToneBoosters apps in this video. And you can see here, if I go back here, that's the original sound we're dealing with. Okay, this is it just going into the EQ. It's taking off that low end. Then to go into the reverb, I'm using a shimmer setting, which is giving it that high octave that's fading away there. Okay, and just kind of making it a little more, filling up the stereo spectrum a little bit more. Okay, and then when I run it through the compressor, I got a really strong pumping going because I wanted to use sidechain compression. Now, I don't ever use this. This is literally the first time I've ever tried to do this. I just picked a preset from here. I picked kick modulator bandpass because that's what sounded the best to me. I didn't set any of this up. This is just a stock setting, but I wanted to get that effect and achieve that and show you some of the functionality that's here in compressor. So that's the string sound. Let's pull that out. Now I've got bass on page 2. So it's got a lot of space here in the bass line if you hear gaps with it playing. So I'm just using this standard bass sound. Okay. And I'm running it through dual VCF. Now, dual VCF, it's a dual filter. You've got 2 of them. I'm running it now in parallel, which means it's running the single signal through both at the same time, rather than in series. It would be running through 1 and then through 2. I've got the first filter here on the left is responding to the envelope. The envelope section's in the middle here, and I've set F1 sets the amount of filter, and I'm setting it to close as it triggers. So if I turn the knob to the left, it will close when the envelope opens. The filter will close. Okay, so that's what's going on in this left filter. On the right-hand filter, I've got that being triggered by an LFO, which is on the bottom here. The depth is setting how much swing you're getting. And I just picked a sine wave, and I picked a high-pass, kind of a notch filter, bandpass filter. You know, I'm just trying to pick something that gives you some sort of a weird, wonky sound so you can hear what the filter is doing to the sound, okay? And so let's get that out of here. And then now, on the third page, I have the drums. So I have the kick here with Digi6. Now that's being processed through RealBus. RealBus is my favorite of all of these ToneBoosters apps. This thing is incredible. It's not just a tape saturation app. It does tape saturation, but it also does like tape flanging. Okay, let me stop this for a second. I think of the middle bit in Lenny Kravitz's Are You Gonna Go My Way, right? It breaks down to just the guitar and just the drums. Now, I'm not going to play that in here so I don't get a copyright strike, but I'll link a video below and I'll try to put the time tag in there so you can get just to the right part. But it breaks down to just the guitar part, and they put a flanger on the drums. And tape flange is a very, very specific sounding flange. And they include that in here. So they've got regular tape, kind of saturation effects. They've got extra drive, they've got a tape flanger, and they've also got an echo. So I'm using the echo section in here to kind of create that slapback effect. Let me show you this is the original sound. Okay, it's just an Oberheim DMX kick drum sound. So I've pushed up the tape saturation here. I've made the drive, I've set the frequency that the drive affects. I'm not using the flanger, but I am using the echo to get me a little bit of a slapback on the kick drum. On the snare drum, I've got that reverb, and I've got the gate turned on so that the gate closes out and turns off the snare. So you get that kind of classic 80s snare. Let's turn that down. For the clap, I wanted to have a nice long tail on the reverb. So I chose the lush setting. These are all presets that are built in. I didn't do very much adjusting on my own for most of these. The real bus for the kick drum I did, and the gate for the snare drum I did. But this one was a stock setting, so let's turn that one down. And then lastly, so I'm using its flanger effect here for the hi-hat and the click. There's a shaker in there, and there's an opening hi-hat, and there's a clave. And all together, that sounds like this. Okay, so then when you add in the bass, now the bass, I don't know if I would ever throw this crazy a filter on an actual track, but I wanted to try to use as many ToneBoosters apps as we could. And let's bring in the strings. And that's what ToneBoosters has given us. So now we're using reverb, compressor, EQ, dual VCF, and real bus. Reverb, compressor, EQ, dual VCF, and real bus. Right. And just using ToneBoosters only apps, I've gotten a really full sound. I've processed the drums in interesting ways. I've gotten a unique bass tone. I've gotten a lush, shimmery reverb. I'm really impressed with how professional these apps are. And here's what I mean. We're starting to get to an era on the iPad where we're getting real ports of actual PC plugins that are coming to the iPad. Tal Uno X is a perfect example of that, right? That's been on the PC for ages, and now, boom, I have it on the iPad. So ToneBoosters is also, PC apps that have been ported over here. But, I mean, these are the quality of apps that would be used by dudes in the studio making, Adele records and stuff like that. These guys would be using ToneBoosters. Now, don't quote me on that. I'm not saying the guys that recorded the last Adele record. She was the first person that came into my head. But people who are on the radio now, I don't know, whoever the hell's on the radio now. I don't listen to the radio anymore. I go to Bandcamp and find all my crap on the internet. Who's on the radio now? Pick your radio artist. Whoever's the record companies are still dumping hundreds of thousands of dollars into making records. They're using these ToneBoosters apps because these things are pro quality. They have all of the deep feature set that can be found in all of the apps that those other guys are using. And the best part is that they're at an affordable price point. That's a big thing for me. I just did a whole video on guitars, all talking about the gear that I use, and it's driven by the cost. I picked up FabFilter's Pro Q because I wanted just one EQ that could just do it all. And it was fantastic, but it also cost me $40, and $40 is a lot for an app. I think that these fall in the $20 range. I think they're $19.99. I'll put up a little thing on the bottom of the screen that actually has the real price because I don't want to bother to look it up and waste your time while I'm trying to film something interesting. But I don't know. I didn't want to dive too much into the functionality of something like compressor because in all truth, I don't use compressors very often. And I understand them and I can work them. But I also find that because the effect is more subtle, it's kind of hard to illustrate it in a 20-minute YouTube video. If you kind of know what a compressor does, then you kind of know what you're getting into here. And there isn't, I think a really good compressor shouldn't impart a lot of sonic quality or sonic characteristics to the sound, right? It should be pretty clean. So that's a harder thing to illustrate in a video than, say, a reverb or a flange or something that's a little bit more a dramatic effect or an in-your-face kind of an effect. So, EQ is the same way for me. I brush off EQ reviews a lot in my videos. Did it with the Nembrini EQ just because, it's an equalizer. At some point, all EQs are kind of the same. It's just how deep do they go? How much adjustability do they have? This particular one has all of the bells and whistles you could possibly want. It certainly is comparable to Pro Q3 in that way, in that, like I said before, it's got the ability to have multi-band compression. That's the word I've been searching for. It's got multi-band compression. It's got multiple points. You can set, I don't know, up to 16 different EQ points. It's got all the different bells and curves. It's incredible, but it's an EQ at the end of the day, so it's not the most gloriously illustrative of apps, right? So their reverb is brilliant. It's the fact that they include shimmer functionality in here just goes above and beyond any standard reverb. I would expect to be able to get hall sounds and big cave sounds and small room sounds. You know, it does all of the standard reverby things that you get from 100 other reverbs. You know, again, we're at an age of the iPad now where we're getting a lot of repeat apps. Every company's got their reverb app. So do you like what this particular company's interfaces look like, how they design their apps? Well, maybe you go with that one just because you like the workability of it rather than the sound. You can get a lot of similar sounds. So I think ToneBoosters, though, goes above and beyond with their adding the shimmer in there. It just gives it that much more flexibility. It makes it more of a one-stop shop for your reverb uses. And I tried to use it in a few different ways here. With getting just the, you know, let's move these. Just getting that slapbacky gated reverb here, and not having to use a separate gate, then having a big gate built in, and me being able to dial this in with relative ease, and then to use another instance to get a nice long reverb like that, and then to get that shimmery reverb all from the same reverb. Now, maybe not the same instance. I'm using 3 different instances of it, but I only purchased it once. That's pretty impressive. Okay. Real Bus. I mean, to have a tape saturation emulation app, right, but to also include the EQ drive section here is crazy. That's really, really cool. I mean, way to dive in and get more out of the app. Then to add tape flange. That's just brilliant. I mean, I've been looking for that effect. Again, it's a very specific sounding flange, right? So I could probably achieve it with another flanger, but to be able to just hit a button and have it instantly here is just excellent. And then also adding in tape echo as well. I mean, again, just making this more of a one-stop shop for multiple different effects. This is becoming one of my favorite tape delays, and tape delay is one of my favorite effects. And then, you know, compressor, having the sidechain ability, again, throwing that extra functionality into their apps and making them that much deeper. Dual VCF, having 2 VCFs, having it the ability to triggerable with the envelope so you can get that kind of an auto wah thing. I've tried to set up an auto wah a million times with multiple apps. Now I can finally just, boom, have it all in one app. It's got the sequencer down here. I can change this. I can customize this and make it whatever I want. Again, the extra functionality of all these apps is so deep. So I'm just rambling at this point. I'm saying the same thing over and over again. You know, I like these apps. I find positive things to say about most apps. So thank you, ToneBoosters team. I have had so much fun with all of these apps. I think that they are just excellent. I had to jump on the ToneBoosters train now. Everybody told me that they're just awesome. Wanted me to talk about them while I'm talking about them, and I'm telling you that they're awesome. But those of you that already have the ToneBoosters app already known that, and I'm super late to the party. But if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please come check me out on Facebook. Please come check me out on Twitter. Please go check me out on Instagram. And go say hi to me on the Autobus forum. And check me out on Patreon. You can sponsor me there, and I can actually do specific videos just for you. That's right. What can I say? I need money like everybody else. I'm just trying to make this channel good. I hope you guys like the video, and thank you so much, ToneBoosters. Yet again, these apps are fantastic, and I really appreciate you reaching out. That was excellent of you, and I will see you guys next freaking time. Later.